Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are back, and I got Andre with me. Very important person that I believe he is. And the reason why is because he has articles on Graham Hancock's website. And right here with Fat Jesus, we got the co host. I'm
Yo,
still waiting
yo,
for him to do
yo.
his
What's up, everyone?
thing. Yep. So today we're going to be talking
And that's
about
rebirth of the word.
Yeah, that's me, rebirth. We're going to be talking about Talopolos, which is a location that Andre believes is where Atlantis used to be. Now, my first question that I had was before we even start getting deep into it, why is this important to you to share where Atlantis is at?
Okay, first off, Talopolos and Atlantis are completely different cities, right? It was stated on my original post that I found Talopolos in my search of Atlantis, but Talopolos ended up being the first solid bit of evidence that I found in my search for Atlantis. You know, I always believed that I had strong evidence for Atlantis, but it was only through my extensive research of Atlantis did I happen to find the city of Talopolos instead, which incredibly enough is by the measurements of Plato, a far greater city in its layout and its scope, but just wasn't talked about as much because of the perspective that Homer gives us from the Odyssey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, which is very interesting. You bring that up because the two sources for Atlantis is Critias. I've heard it said so many different ways, and Timaeus. And those are the two locations where we get the bread and butter of Atlantis from Plato.
Yeah.
And of course, we have a lot of text that comes after that. But me personally, the horse's mouth is Plato. Before that, it would be, Solon and other people, of course. But Plato is the actual one that actually wrote it down for people for records. So if we are going to go off of record keeping, something that was annotated as part of history or some kind of historical event or something like that, it would come from Plato. And we were all talking offline, and I said that, one of my favorite sources for that is Benjamin Jowett. And the reason why is because he wrote these ones in 1871. And he talks about, the idea of Atlantis and the facts and truth about it and all this stuff. I brought it up right here. You got translated right here by Benjamin Jowett, 1871. And you can literally go on sacred-text.com to actually read this for free. It doesn't take that long. Maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on your speed. Maybe.
Yeah, read.
Yeah, it's not a long read. And if you don't want to read it all, what I like to do is if you're on a computer, you can do this on phones and stuff like that, depending on how to search for it. But I like to hit Control F, which is basically, it brings up a little box on the, the right-hand side or wherever the box might pop up on your computer. I just type in Atlantis, and it will bring up everything that is talked about in Atlantis. And there's 3 times when the word Atlantis is actually mentioned in which version are we in? In Timaeus, right? So you have 3 times when it's mentioned, and they're pretty much all in the same paragraph right here.
Yeah,
right here, and it's very short. It's not
very much about it in the Timaeus as much.
Exactly.
Yes, I kind of disregard the Timaeus for the most part.
Yeah, because it's not that much of anything spoken about it. I mean, first of all, it's only mentioned 3 times in this one, and it's in one paragraph. Or if you want to
the Cretaceous is crazy what it says in there.
Yeah. So, absolutely. A lot of people will say, well, Plato says this, Plato says that. Well, honestly, my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't know exactly what Plato said. We just know what a translation is from what we got from Plato.
And in fact, one of my first clues that I came across was a mistranslation of Plato in Benjamin Jowett's translation. In fact, I discovered that in my research of the original Greek text that it was written in, that the Greeks had didn't have punctuation in their text, right? there's a thing called scripto continuo, I believe, or scriptio continuo, something like that. I don't know the Latin, but basically it means a run-on sentence. Whereas there's no structure where you know one sentence begins and one sentence ends. So oftentimes when you read long text in ancient Greek, a run-on sentence could run kind of like a train of thought sometimes. So it's instead of having the punctuation normally that you'd have, you kind of have to think about it as a person who doesn't have punctuation, kind of narrating it, kind of half thinking about one thing and then talking about something else. You might miss the context exactly what he's speaking of. And in one case specifically, it's the measurement that they describe the Great Plain that exists in Atlantis as being 3,000 by 2,000 stadia in dimensions. And most people mistake that to be the actual Great Plain dimensions when it's actually the dimensions of the island of Atlantis.
Mm-hmm. And this is where under Cretaceous, right? Where I think
Ron. But I find that's fascinating because, the translation, if something seems out of place, going back to the original text or thinking about it in a nonlinear format can sometimes reveal clues like that, right? You can't think punctuation was put in completely by Benjamin Jowett.
Right. So what actually got you started? Like where did you first start for this? Like what was your beginning portion? I know it had to be, of course, Plato's books, but where did you go from there to find, where Tlapalos is at?
Again, Tlapalos was never on my radar. Atlantis was always my goal. And just because when you do research on these things, you kind of want to have the complete picture. So I did research into Odysseus and into Hercules and all these other ancillary stories and Greek classics. I studied the classics when I went to university, and it was always fascinating to me. I've had a lifelong fascination with Atlantis. I even spent a number of years even remodeling ancient Antarctica using topographic bed map data from a survey there, reconstructing it and isometrically demorphing the isostatic rebound. Just a lot of technical stuff that just in my search for Atlantis. And I mean, nothing ever came up. And I guess what really was my more recent inspiration was I said to myself one day, I said, what was life like 10,000 years ago? What was the world like 10,000 years ago? What did the sea levels look like? And there's this image that Noah had put out called, sea level dropped at 110 meters. And it was sea level during the last glacial maximum. And, something caught my eye in that image. And what caught my eye was that there was a mistake in their map. So I noticed that the sea level in the Mediterranean wasn't correct. And that set me down a path of discovery. And it was a few little earworms or little brainworms that just pop up over time. Like you see a video here and there about a little fact and it just kind of sticks in your noggin. Like I'd heard back a couple of years ago about the Mediterranean, why they never put a dam across the Mediterranean. Like, why wouldn't you put a dam across a hydroelectric dam? You can make so much energy. But the simple fact is that the sea level would drop in the Mediterranean because of the water that's flowing in from that the tributaries and whatnot. They don't they wouldn't replenish the water. It would evaporate too fast. So what keeps the level of the Mediterranean where it is the influx from the Strait of Gibraltar. So I went off on a rant there. You're putting up images.
No, you're doing great.
I'm looking up in the distance, and I'm like,
No, it makes sense because I've said this before plenty of times and I've said this online to you because I never shy away from what I say and what I believe from what people say. So first of all, you have this article here on Graham Hancock's website. A lot of people respect Graham Hancock and respectfully should, right? Because he's all over the place with trying to give people information, and he asks questions. That's what he does. He asks questions. He doesn't go around and say 100% absolutes, or at least I haven't heard him say absolutes.
When I was a young man, he was one of my initial inspirations. I read his book when I was a teenager, right? He's an older man now. I'm an older man. And when I found this, my first goal was to bring it to him. And it almost brings a tear in my eye sometimes that it turned out the way it did, because he was a hero of mine. And he sent me an email personally, lambasting me, not a fan of me. He's not a fan of me now. And it took the wind out of my sails. Wow. Because I said that, I had no love for Jimmy Corsetti and his ridiculous structure theory. And I
well, why should you listen to him if he doesn't want to listen to you?
No, hold on. That's not even the right question, Fat Jesus. Why would you listen to him if he ain't never been there in the first place? You know what I'm saying? Oh. And what I mean by is there, and I'm bringing this up because David Stig is the only person that I know of that actually been to the Richak structure, and he's been there 3 times. So at bare minimum, that would be the person that I would go to. Remember when I said I'd rather hear it from the horse's mouth? Like if I'm going to go off anything about Atlantis, is going to be Plato. It's not going to be anybody else's interpretation after they read Plato, because I can read myself and I know I can comprehend what I'm reading. So I don't need somebody else to tell me what to read. Now, if they give me ideas and so on and so forth, I would take that. But the ball is still in my park because I know how to read and comprehend what I'm reading. But when it comes to the rich ass structure, I've told Stig this before, and I said this offline. The only problem with his argument is it's not considered an island, because in Timaeus and Crete, or in
that's a continent.
Yeah, it's exactly. So, and matter of fact, while I'm typing this, I'm going to make sure I type in the word island just to make sure. Yeah, see, here we go. I'm going to bring it up real quick because I want to make sure that people understand when I'm reading something, I'm reading it in the language that I understand it in, meaning English. Okay.
Well, it definitely was an island.
Yeah, and it says island here, I typed it in, and it says island 24 times in, I believe what version I'm pretty sure I'm in Cretaeus. Yeah, it says in Cretaeus 24 different times that the word island is used. I know what an island is because of what I was taught in school, right? And it's usually surrounded by a body of water, a land surrounded by a body of water. Now, there's other indications of an island that some people have said in the past.
I want to correct you before you move on. Africa was an island 100 million to 120 million years ago.
They consider it an island because it's surrounded by water as far as today. But
I just wanted to correct you. I don't want us to be completely false, but even though that's a long time ago, but it was at one time.
Yeah, and that's based off of translation. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's based off of translation. That's what people would say. But that's not exactly what they was calling it, an island. They weren't calling it island and continents, 10,000, 12,000 years ago. We know that because they didn't have a writing system 10,000, 20,000 years ago, right? But what we do have is depictions. So that's what we have to use as far as depictions. But those depictions are based off of people's understanding from oral traditions, meaning art is creativity, meaning that when you create art, it's in your eyes and your ideas. It's not everybody's. So that's why I say if I'm going to go off of something, I'm reading it in the English version that I am reading it, because that's what I understand. And if I read the word island and understand what an island is, I know that the Richak structure doesn't necessarily fall under that idea. And I also feel like I've also talked to Michael Donnellan, who talks about the Cadiz theory also, and I brought that up to him also. And there's these arguments about Atlantis based off of the wording that is used in English. Like I said, I like to use Benjamin Jowett. So let me ask you this: Andre, because right here it says right here, while the surrounding basin of the sea is everywhere, deep in the neighborhood of the shore, many great deluges have taken place during the 9,000 years. So we know that there's been plenty of floods at that time. But this time,
who provided this information?
What you're describing there is mistaken. Actually, not mistaken. It's in the context of ancient Greece, not in the context of Atlantis.
That's what we need to hear.
Yeah, that's what I want you to bring.
You got a map I shared in the chat there with you. Hellas there. If you go into Twitter chat there, I sent an image.
Oh, you sent the image in Twitter chat. Okay.
Now the difference between us and the cultural Greece is far apart. We are a modern culture of our own kind, but Greece, completely different culture altogether. So the way they speak, the way they talk, the way they write, how they understand the continents or the world. They even thought the Mediterranean Sea. They said the Mediterranean Sea was a river. It's not a river, it's a sea. But apparently to them it was a river, and they didn't know too much beyond that point.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with Greece now, that probably won't. You probably will be like, what's different than what's there now? Well, that whole area that's there listed as Attica, that is not a peninsula right now. There is just an archipelago of islands that are going through there. Most of what you see as mountains are just the tips of islands. But that is what the sea level would have been in the time of Atlantis, in the time of the Greco-Atlantean War that's described by Plato, and the time that this is the pre-Deucalion landscape, right? And like what you described there, it describes ancient Greece as being a basin. And then beyond the basin, which is the sea that you're looking right there, beyond the basin, it drops off deeper. Now, if you go past Crete and you look at the actual topography or the bathymetry of the ocean, once you pass Crete,
is Crete there? Where is Crete? Down below?
Yeah,
there it is. There it is. South.
You see where where Cytherea is? Where they? Yeah.
South.
So yeah, that's. That is what Plato describes there as being of ancient Greece. He describes it in great detail as being a much more fertile land, and like an animal. He describes what happened to Greece as being like an animal stripped of its flesh over time. Like the mountains used to have lots of soil, but all the soil from all the mountains over all the Deucalion events had stripped away all the natural soils and put everything downstream.
That's how we feel about today with the United States, when we have taken all the trees down and put up all these cities and everything, and all these animals are now walking around in our neighborhoods when we took away all their homes and everything. So we stripped away everything from them.
Yeah, you strip away the vegetation, then the subsoil just erodes away. But it was a little bit more involved in this period, because we're talking about coming off of the last ice age. There were glaciers that were feeding large amounts of water coming through down through Armenia and North Macedonia, through the plains came down, massive amounts of water that flooded during the Deucalion.
Oh my gosh, we've been having this problem for thousands of years. This is not just a modern problem. It's an ancient problem too.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, all the events that are spoken about in flood events are generally around the Mediterranean Ocean. That's where all our flood mythology comes from. There might be one in India, but I mean, certainly most of them are isolated to the Mediterranean basin, and it's a basin for a reason, because it fills and can flood, but it can only get so high, before it just starts flooding out into Africa and whatnot. But I mean, it's certainly, it's like a bathtub with one big outlet.
For them, they felt like they were in a bathtub. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So, okay, because you brought up Jimmy Corsetti, you brought up Graham Hancock. I know Graham Hancock he knows Jimmy Corsetti, and he knows a lot of other different individuals.
Well,
Jimmy
he writes the same thing in his books that they talk about. So he adds their information. Am I correct about that,
who
Andre?
Graham?
Graham
Oh,
Hancock?
sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was
So
the question?
the information that you provide, he also adds to his book. I mean, doesn't your information pop up in his book time to time?
My information? I haven't read any of his recent uh, publications.
So I'm sure when he gets up on stage, he mentions about your work.
I would love to
And
think that he would, but I mean, he kind of gave me a dismissal there. I think he's just completely not not letting himself this paradigm shift. You know, because I mean, to me, once you get the idea that in your head that there's a whole lost world here. This isn't just one city. This is like Tolapolos, Atlantis, and a number of other possible cities that got destroyed at the same time. Like you've got to think about if this was an age of Hercules, there's also the king of Tartessus that helped him by giving him a golden goblet to go across the ocean to get to travel to the island of the Hesperides. I'm not pronouncing that right. Anyway, yeah. So I mean, there's all kinds of stories of different cultures. I mean, even in the Odyssey, I mean, island of Circe, there's island of Calypso. I mean, all people were surrounding, were living on all these islands, and all these there were numerous communities that had popped up around the Mediterranean, both large and small. So the thought that there could have been, you know, a civilization that was on par, or if not exceeding the skill level of the Romans 12,000 years ago, or even I dare to say 20,000 years ago, you know, is crazy to think about, and which is why I think a lot of the archaeologists and historians are just like, I don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, because that's like rewriting the history books. That's like too much work. You know what I mean? Like,
yes, you know, I got to say, you know, you know, it's hard to tell when somebody is passionate about what they want to do, and it's hard to tell if somebody's doing it for followers and likes, or just jumping on the bandwagon. I know a lot of people steal other people's ideas and stuff like that, and it's very interesting because of the simple fact that, you know, I really believe there's nothing new under the sun. Somebody somewhere knows something, right? But when we talk about Atlantis, it literally says right here. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. It literally says, but afterward there were occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, all your warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island of Atlantis in like manner disappeared in the depths of the sea, for which reason the sea in those parts is impassable and impenetrable, because there is a shoal of mud in the way, and this was caused by the subsidence of the island. Now, this is interesting to me because it literally says disappeared in the depth of the sea. It doesn't say it was disappeared and rose back later on. It said disappeared, meaning that it's gone. So in my idea, when I come up to it, the rich act structure doesn't fall under that at all.
No.
Right? But now my question is for you, because of the idea of Atlantis. It says, okay, here we go. Let's see. It was here we go. Because I was looking at this right here, this part right here. It says, now in the island of Atlantis, there was a great and wonderful empire which had rule over the whole island and several others in other parts of the continent. And furthermore, the men of Atlantis had subjected the parts of Libya within the columns of Hercules as far as Egypt, and of Europe as far as Tyrrhenia. So we have, like what we talked about offline, is the idea that we know that Atlantis has a capital, right? There's a location for the capital where it's the main branch, but that doesn't take away the fact that it had land from where from it says as far as Egypt and Europe and Tyrrhenia, right? So we know that anything within that area falls under the rule of Atlantis, but that doesn't mean that's the main location. And I brought that up to plenty of people that I spoke to. Is we know that it expands a certain amount of distance, but the fact is that the main location is in one part. But what struck me curious is it does says in over parts of the continent. So that means that island could have been a capital, and the continent that's near that island could have possibly been part of it, right? But let me ask you, when you think of that and you read that, how can I say this? How big do you think the actual Atlantis was, the culture itself? Because you just said, just like you said earlier, they don't have, grammar like we do.
Yeah.
So it's hard to break that down.
Well, like I said earlier, I believe that the island of Atlantis is 3,000 stadia in its length. And that's 3,000 stadia by my research, which is 174.6 meters per stadia, right? Now that's a pretty big clue. And if somebody wanted to start looking around, they might actually find Atlantis, but I'm not going to tell you to do that. But I mean, certainly the kingdom of Atlantis stretched beyond the island. It was described in Plato, and I'm completely ad-libbing here because I'm going off the top of my head, my memory, not actually bringing up the text. But you can correct me if I'm wrong. But King Atlas had 7 brothers who each had a stake in the lands of Atlantis and the surrounding territories. Some had islands, but one brother, I think in particular, whose name was Gaderia, had the lands south of Atlantis on the other side of the sea, adjacent to Atlantis, which he called Gades or Gaderia in Plato. Now, that's where it blows me away that nobody really has made the link between Gaderia or Gades and the actual city of Cadiz, which originally was named Gades after the Herculean legend. So it's not that people haven't made that connection before, but it is certainly why the city of Cadiz originally got its name, because I was talking to somebody actually from Cadiz recently, and he kind of argued the point that I'm wrong, but we didn't really reach any kind of mutual understanding on it. But from my understanding, from Strabo of Amasia, he describes the founding of Cadiz as being having an oracle sent out an expedition in search of the Pillars of Hercules, because in their time they had lost the location of the Pillars of Hercules. And I thought to myself, well, that's awfully odd. How can you lose the location of the Pillars of Hercules? Wouldn't they have been like a legend from the time they were incepted, right? So that kind of caught me as odd that they would send an expedition in search of it. And that's how they actually founded the city. The expedition kept going west until they found something that looked like the Pillars of Hercules. They said, okay, well, this is as close as we're going to get to the Pillars of Hercules. There's nothing else beyond this. We're just going to set up shop here and basically call this Gades or Gaderia, or not Gades, which eventually become Cadiz, is just up the coast from the Strait of Gibraltar.
Yeah,
and that's
what's north of it is Spain, right?
Yeah, it's one of the cities of Spain. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Hey, can you pull up my map real quick there, Rebirth? I have a screen being shared. Okay, so this is a recreation. None of the maps survived in Greece, so it's very difficult to find something of that time period because they had perishable paper. And this is a recreation by a French cartographer, and you probably know who it is because you're a professional.
Not off the top of my head. No, I
Yeah.
actually haven't seen this one.
It's
Okay.
funny. It's funny you bring up maps, bro, because Andre actually commented. I went to the oldest city in America, which is St. Augustine, and I was down there, and they actually had a Greek Orthodox church. Well, artifacts down there. Like they changed out this little thing, this little area, and I don't know if you remember or not. But here, I'll bring it up real quick, and I'm bringing yours back up in a second, Fat Jesus. But I actually, so I got a lot of pictures too. So here's all the pictures that I have right here that I took from there. And
Okay,
remember,
that's too much. That's ADHD
no,
right there.
here you go. I'm gonna show you because it's funny because Andre made me laugh when when I shared this because he was like, I looked at it and nope. So it had a lot of these maps from Greek. Right here, like all these maps right here was from that location. These are original maps from that location. So when you say they didn't have any maps to survive, these are actually maps.
Those are a little bit more modern.
Well, you say that, right?
Those are a bit modern.
You say that, right?
We're talking about Atlantis time.
No, hold on. Well, of course they didn't have maps from that time frame.
No, I mean they made maps, but it's just they did not survive. They had a lot of issues over there, man.
They had it's interesting because they had a lot of maps, and I brought this up to him, and he said I looked at those and none of them shows it. So it was interesting that at bare minimum, we do have some kind of indication of maps, but we also know how maps were created. They were created because of different people got their hands on.
Yeah, they copy it.
Somebody's going to scribe. Yeah, somebody's going to scribe another map and copy it. Yeah. But this one is made by Petrus Berthius from France, the French cartographer, and it just depicted that.
Atlantis is there.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? They always put their names.
Atlantis is right there.
But I mean, clearly, it doesn't show China and other parts of the world. So there was a limit to their vision of there's no Pacific Ocean and there's no Atlantic Ocean, but there's a Mediterranean Sea, what they consider the river. So I mean obviously their state of mind, we have to put our feet in their shoes, not in our shoes. We have to think like they did and have the limit. We have to be ignorant as they were, not knowing what was outside, because outside of that map was the realms of the gods, pretty much. So if you go outside of that, you're gone. You disappeared. So
yeah, that's when the Bible says, "Hey, there was a worldwide flood." Do you really think they meant the globe? No, they meant this place. This place flooded.
That's I'm glad you said that, because I always tell people this. Every civilization started by a body of water. Every civilization started by a body of water, and during that time frame, just because for the simple fact that floods happen every time, every year, hundreds of floods happen. There's no doubt in my mind that a flood happened one place and then a flood happened somewhere else, and then eventually, because of religious views and ideas, it became one flood story, not the multiple different stories. Like when we read in Atlantis, it literally says several deluges, like floods, basically, right? So we know that they had floods, but this last flood that they talk about completely, covered up the location of Atlantis. So,
well, there was one event that caused its sinking, but again, I believe that Tlapalos was spared that same cataclysm, fortunately. And it was because of that impassable mud barrier that actually, because Tlapalos is on the other side of where I believe that impassable mud barrier is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the idea and theories of flat Earth comes from, people. I mean, the ignorance has extended so far into our modern days that people actually, and flat earthers, use these maps as proof of their theories, and there's no proof at all because this map is limited to the actual world that we know of today.
Well, if you understand Mercator projection, it's fine. You have to understand projections before you can, it's not a
know more than I do.
Well, this is my bread and butter, right? I mean, I work in mapping and technology that has to tie in coordinates, has to account for the curvature of the Earth, and it's part of surveying, right, and part of construction. Like I could lay out this city myself tomorrow as part of a massive earthworks project. It's no different than any of the work that I do in designing highways, right? So, that's what I'm doing now. But I mean, certainly, I mean, it's urban planning at it just gives me chills. The scope of it all.
I want to give people a little bit more context on the social aspects of Greece. Just before we move on to this map, show mine real quick, and I want people to understand their belief system was based on a different type of religion altogether. They believed the Earth was the center of the solar system. The sun and everything else moved around us. They had that complete belief system, and this is the idea that they had. So, I mean, maybe there was an underdog amongst them and said, no. The Earth went around the sun. We don't know. I don't know. I don't know if there was one person at least that was, ostracized out of all of Greece. But Greece basically was a community like we know of Rome and we know of the United States. When we get together as scientists, we agree upon one thing and say, this is fact. We're going to put it in every university book. Well, this is what they believed in, and they taught this to everyone.
So you look at that and you see a simple diagram like that, but you can look at our diagram, a Niels Bohr diagram of the atom, and say that, it's great in practical terms as a representation, symbology of what we're talking about. But is an atom really in the same form as orbitals that we traditionally look at? No, they're absolutely not in the same. But for all intents and purposes, for practical, illustration, they might have very well just given that kind of a sketch just to kind of, show that we're at the center of the universe, or the sun is here and whatnot.
And you know what's so cool? That Greece, with all their limited knowledge, they were so intelligent, and they were the detail of the mapping, the detail in the fishery, and the detail of knowing exactly where everything was around them. They were very focused on knowing more. You know what I'm saying? They weren't like dumb. They were just a little bit ignorant because they didn't know what was beyond that. If they knew that
well, see, you got to look at the word ignorant. Ignorant just means that
you don't know.
Lack of education, lack of information.
I like
lack
this
of information.
I like this the edmond.net that you sent me, Andre, because this right here, because I have a question to follow up on this. When I look at Timaeus, and I go and read Timaeus, it says, many great and wonderful deeds are recorded of your state in our histories, but one of them exceeds all the rest in greatness and valor. For these histories tell of a mighty power which unprovoked made expedition against the whole of Europe and Asia, into which your city put an end. This power came forth of the Atlantic Ocean, for in those days the Atlantic was navigable, and there was an island situated in front of the straits, which are by you called the Pillars of Hercules. The island was larger than Libya and Asia put together. Now, this right here, what is your idea of this?
My take on that is, first off, the size of Asia and Libya put together, that there's no real context for that, because in our modern context, we have no idea what that scale is. So let's just throw that one completely out.
That's crazy. What the hell is that, man? I can't believe that.
Atlantis was 3,000 stadia top to bottom. on its biggest length, and that is quite a distance. So what were you saying? Okay, so it lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, and what was the first part? It said
it says right here. Let me get back to it. It says this power came forth out of the Atlantic Ocean, for in those days the Atlantic was navigable.
See, when it says the Atlantic Ocean, you got to think of what the word Atlantic actually means, right?
Okay.
We say Atlantic, right? That sounds like we don't question the etymology of the word, but Atlantic literally means the Sea of Atlas, right? So when you say the Sea of Atlas, the word Atlantic encompasses the body of water. It's called at the Atlantic. So to say the Atlantic Ocean is kind of like a double naming, and it's a sea. It literally means a sea of Atlas. So it's not that the Atlantic Ocean is where Plato was describing it. We called it the Atlantic Ocean because that's where we believed lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules. Once we figured out where the Pillars of Hercules were, we were like, okay, well, that's the Atlantic Ocean. But prior to that, that was Oceanus, just Oceanus. So saying the Atlantic Ocean is kind of like say, it's a misnomer. We've always been calling it that, but it actually refers to a different body of water, a different sea, an inland sea that was created because of the lower Mediterranean Ocean.
Can you zoom out, because people think this is on the coast of an island? They actually believe that this is on the coast of an island, and with that belief, that means that it's just part of Greece. But it's not part of Greece. It's in the middle of the sea.
I want to say this. Pay attention now. When you look right here at my arrow, right? Let me see if I can make this bigger on the screen
Pretty
for
deep.
you, because I just noticed this. If you look at this area right here, right where hold on, let's see.
It drops off
right
down
here.
there, right? Yeah.
No, if you look at this here, you can see land all right here, and then it slowly comes up here.
Yeah.
But that's not actually land. That's actually just low level of water, right? I mean,
exactly. So but the point is that you can see that we right here see this part right here, right?
It looks like it had a connection at one time from there to that island that we have today.
Right,
well, the shading could be kind of misleading there because I mean it's based on the elevation, so it represents shallow water.
But
that's why we have you here, because you can tell us if it is just our eyes deceiving us or that was connected at one time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was connected. I should have brought my maps up to give you guys, but certainly the one that Graham Hancock had on his website there.
But you can see that this little island right here by itself is cut off by this part right here.
Yeah, currently it is Strait of Messina.
Right here.
Yeah.
See?
Here, zoom out a little bit so you could see how how it splits that island and comes all the way straight down the ridge in that sea area. So I would assume there's earthquakes all the time.
I mean, you can see
geologically, it's very geologically stable apart from Mount Etna.
No kidding.
Right there.
Oh wow.
Well, I mean the region is fairly earthquake free, I think. I mean, they're very rare to see earthquakes in around that area, apart from like I said, around Mount Etna. I'm not even sure the last time that even erupted. But that's a pretty crazy mythological volcano there, Mount Etna.
Yeah, I know. I was watching that. That's crazy. There's a lot of people living there too. Did you guys see that? Did you see how that volcano?
So this wouldn't be Malta.
Italy?
It looks like this would be Malta, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's the island of Malta. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we know that, from our understanding, if we look at it, this area right here is very important because it is underwater. If if it was at a point that it was much, much, much lower, would all this be, shown? Possibly, right? But then when you go to Google Earth, when I go to Google Earth, you can see, here, I'll bring it up real quick because this is, I like the way that it shows I guess the details, and as far as Google Earth, you can see the ridges on the side.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Well, at the edge of the continental shelf, and luckily water didn't drop any lower than it did, because had sea levels not like dropped to where they did, then the continental shelf would have been like really high. I mean, it would have been cliffs everywhere. You wouldn't have been able to even get ashore, because at precisely 250 meters is generally the edge of that escarpment, is what they call it, right?
Wow.
It's where it falls off in the ocean. And but yeah, my theory is that it reached that equilibrium at minus 250 meters, which is twice the level that the oceans worldwide had dropped at the time.
Okay.
So, and that explores like so much land that it's unbelievable. I mean, even like if you reread the Timaeus or the Cretaeus again, and the very first part where they talk about
how beautiful that is,
ancient Athens, it was a beautiful country, and the way they describe it is that so much decimation has happened to ancient Greece because of the flooding, and it's just so much flooding has happened over the last 10,000 years. But again, part of my theory that they could have had a stable basin for probably 50,000 years, and that very well could have been the cradle of civilization.
Yeah, the volcano I'm thinking about is in Italy. I do apologize for that. But the one that you mentioned, Mount Etna, is the one in location in Greece, right? And
well, no,
and that one's continuously having like it's not like massive eruptions, but it's always erupting. Is that correct?
Well, it's in Sicily. It's just north of Tolapa.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
Yeah. If you bring up the map there on EMOD.net again, I can show.
Bring up the map again, Rebirth. Bring up the map again that you were on.
Let me close this out.
You jumped the gun.
Loving
that map, bro.
This one right here.
That is beautiful. Yeah, I mean, but the other one you had was even better too.
The little dot, the white dot, the red dot with the white period in the middle is just north of there. That's a big volcano. Go north. North.
Keep going north. There we go. That one right there.
Yeah, it's Mount Etna.
Oh, that's Mount Etna. Okay, so that's a volcano.
Yeah, and I think that's the original source of the of Tartarus myth in ancient Greek mythology.
No way. That's crazy.
The actual underworld, I believe that's where it's located.
It's Etna, ETNA, right? So here it is right here. I'm bringing it up on Google Maps real quick.
It's a beautiful volcano. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, they say that it's in the state of near continuous eruption, frequently cycling through periods of intense activity. Wow. I mean, just living nearby that and all that smoke and everything, and inhalation and everything, that's crazy to be around that all the time. I wonder how far the cities are on that. Yeah, there it is. It's always smoking.
That's interesting. Let me ask you something, Andre.
Sure.
Okay, so of course you've went through Jimmy Corsetti's idea. Well, I should say David Sticks, because he's the one that been at the Rorschach structure.
Yeah.
You understand his ideas.
Absolutely.
You understand Michael Donnellan's ideas. You understand Randall Carlson. Now, what's interesting about Randall Carlson is I respect him also because of his information that he passes, but he also passes information in the sense of, okay, he makes more absolutes than most of the other people that I know. He says, this is the location. David Sticks says the same thing. This is the location. It's an absolute, right?
Yeah.
Now, my absolute is on this. it says in so many ways that they had an advanced type of civilization, right?
Yeah.
One that I always ask is, what do you consider a civilization? What is the criteria needed to be considered a civilization? Because when we look at the Sumerians, and I talk about them a lot, they're usually considered a civilization because of their writing system, which goes back to about 3200 BC. And it starts off as pictographic script, basically just pictures, emojis of today, basically, right? But I've asked both David Stig and Michael Donnellan this question, what is the criteria? And from both of them, I got two different things. I got one was that they were able to, David Stig specifically says they were able to terraform the earth. They were able to create the earth to their liking. That should be a part of a civilization. And Michael Donnellan says more of a, if I'm not mistaken, on my podcast at least, he says it has to do more with sailing, like shipping, like using ships and stuff like that. What is your definition of a civilization, and how do you consider Atlantis an advanced civilization? Because they don't sit there and say that Atlantis had, iron to create this, or, flying chariots, because a lot of people consider Atlantis an extraterrestrial idea or alien aspect, at least. So what is your idea of a civilization?
I think it's organized urban planning and design is really it's a hallmark of a true civilization. When you have the forethought to lay out the structure of your city and your civilization on a large scale, and actually to follow through with that in construction and lay your ideas onto the earth. It's kind of like NASCAR lines, you know what I mean? It's like you got this idea of something far grander than yourself, and you're able to etch it into the very foundations of the earth. I think that is the true hallmark of a civilization. It's like the pyramid will never be erased. And I think Talopolos, again, I hate to toot my horn, because it's not my horn. I'm just its champion. But I think it is the hallmark of civilization written into the very earth itself. The sheer scale and dimension can only be by human hands. So it's in that organization, and even in the inner structure that I've noticed. If you look at my maps and look into my research a bit more, the city itself was laid out into an organized, symmetrical structure, broken down in the 100 stadia was broken down into 14, 24, 24, 24, 24, and 14, like in equal domains, or I guess the Romans would call them regios or regions. Like it's broken down. The plant, the design was broken down by the stadia into smaller sections, like what we do today, but done 12,000 years ago. And when you're able to etch, like I said, etch your ideas into the very earth and have it last that long, that's the goal of any construction project, to last, through a time, I guess, because very little things will be will be around in 50,000 years. We don't know what the earth is going to be like. We could so many things could happen to the planet. The Cascadia could collapse. The whole western seaboard could fall into the ocean. Who knows, right? Could have another impact from a asteroid, for all we know. Well, probably not anytime soon, but but will our works be recognizable, into future generations who have forgotten us?
Well, that's interesting, because like I said earlier, when I was doing my research, because I like to see what ChatGPT, Grok, and all these AI things say about, these locations. And I typed in Talopolos, and I typed in, what is the connection with that and Atlantis and so on and so forth, and it brought your name up. Like, you're in the digital world as far as this theory and this idea, and it's fascinating to me because we have many people who have an indication where Atlantis is, and every one of them, including yourself, says that this is the main location. What separates your theory from everybody else's that makes it this is the location, not just based off of your feelings and emotions? Because I know you said this place wasn't even on your mind at first.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm not telling you right now where Atlantis is. My theory of Atlantis is my own. It's kind of I treat Talopolos as the gateway, because in order to fully understand where Atlantis is, you have to understand that Talopolos is there, and not only is it there, is when it was there. When it was there is so important, because again, it could only have existed in the same time frame as Atlantis on that shoreline. It could have only existed on that common shoreline in a period no earlier than 10,500 years ago, and because that's well, according to my projections anyway, could be off by a couple hundred years. I really can't say for sure, but certainly in that time frame. And Atlantis didn't exist in a vacuum. I mean, no maritime giant would. I mean, you're going to have counterparts. I mean, consider this. Plato even described its war with the Greeks had won its war against the Atlanteans. So the Greeks had a comparable, society to stand up to the Atlanteans, and so there were probably likely so many other in the area, is what I'm saying, that were all drowned, in around the same period.
Are you trying to make a trip to that location by water just to see for yourself, or?
Well, I want to. I have I've had plans to actually build an ROV and dive it myself. I got people in Sicily who are willing to put me up and give me a boat. But I need funding that I don't have right now, and I have a job that I have and a family that I support. So I'm about to write a book. I'm about to finish my book, and hoping to get some kind of notoriety or some kind of revenue from that, so I can turn around and mount an expedition. It's my goal.
That's 250 meters. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, 250 meters.
What the hell does it take? What kind of machinery do we have to get down to 250 meters?
Yeah, it's beyond commercial diving. I mean, you need, if you want to dive,
you only go 40 meters, right?
Well, you can go down
commercial diving.
100 meters, I think you can probably get.
Oh, with specialized, with the big, huge. You look like you barely can move. You look like an astronaut,
Yeah. But and certainly you can dive 250 meters. It's a specialized kind of diving that you have to do. Then it's called saturation diving.
Yeah,
you basically
you got a hose. You got a hose, right?
Well, no, you're under the water and you stay submerged for long periods of time. So the problem with diving that much is called nitrosis, right? You get nitrogen that seeps into your blood at high pressures. So when they call saturation diving is when you're in that environment for like a long period of time, like you stay in like a submarine basically, and you go out diving, but you stay in that high pressure situation for long periods of time. As opposed to coming up all the time, right? Diving.
I've had diving lessons back when I was in Florida. You're starting to have me remember all the lessons that they were giving me about that. And you could actually die from diving. It's like really dangerous.
I'm not doing that anytime soon. But I mean, I have all the CAD skills, and I just need the extra funding to build my ROV.
That's the most important thing, funding. So the reason why I asked you that question for two reasons, and I'll get to it after I talk about this funding part. There are people like Jimmy Corsetti, Randall Carlson, and they Michael Donnellan and all these individuals. They have a certain amount of money that they can use for this project. And because they have this money for these projects, you know, Randall Carson gets to go to across the world because of the simple fact of his followers. His followers send him
that whale of the followers.
Thousands
yeah,
and
they send
thousands
him
of dollars.
Yeah, I know that for a fact because I know one guy from Cosmic Summit actually said that he gave Randall Carson like $5,000 one time.
Wow.
Which is pretty interesting. And I don't know why he told me that. He told like 4 or 5. I don't know if it's true or not because you know people
want to put their money towards something worthwhile. You know what I mean?
But see, this is
I have seen Carlson at work too. He's a businessman.
This is the reason why I bring this up because this is where you say this is the location. About right here is the location where you believe it's at, right? So I hit this little human figure down. And you can see it's somewhere around this location. They have a little dot. Now, I just seen this clicking on it. That's very interesting. You click on it, you don't see no land. But what the hell is this?
Where did that come from?
You see what I'm saying?
Put stuff on Google Earth all the time.
Yeah, and that's interesting.
That's not even from here. I think that's in Turkey, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know.
It says right here, whatever this is. But this is interesting. This is interesting to me because I want to.
Let me look it up.
Look that up real quick because it's interesting to me because this is Google Earth. Okay.
Wait, you moved it out.
Oh, you need to say it again?
Yeah. I needed to get the name. Yeah. Hold on. I can't even spell that thing.
MNAJDRA Archaeological Park.
Okay, got it. You could get out of there.
So I'm on Google Earth. This is right here. This is Malta. This is where the location is. But that's not the only one. You don't see land in these two areas at all. Now let's click on this one and see what this one's
located in Malta.
Why is this like this? You see what I'm saying?
That's a man's power move.
Well, you know what? I should probably just go there
to come to my place.
I can put my rendering of Talopolos there in Google Earth, and so when people click on it, they see that as well. What is that? A photo layer? Street view layer?
This is
I wonder how you put that in. Interesting.
It's you click on the little man and they have locations right here. They have like
people put their photos in there. They probably accidentally click on there and then all of a sudden it's stuck there forever. It never disappears.
Because this is it right here. Malta's right there.
Yeah. And so
you got this location right here.
Yeah.
Which would be this place. But then you got just not that far from there. You got this, which is this part right here, which it says is part of Malta. That's what you said, right, Fat Jesus?
That's in Malta. That's on the island of Malta.
Now this is the question.
So they're claiming, whoever put that picture there, are claiming that is part of Atlantis. That's why they put it out there in the ocean.
Oh, they could have done that.
Yeah, it's very confusing because I bring this up for the main reason of saying this. You know, everything online is not accurate, right? We can go to ChatGPT, Grok, Gemini, and all this other stuff, and you can ask it a question and it will tell you something, and you can sit here and say, okay, as a person, if you feel like you're comfortable and happy with this information, you'll say that information online on social media. And depending on your following and the people who follow you, they will repeat this same thing over and over and over and over again, which eventually becomes, you know, the word of basically the facts. They're saying this is facts. This is straight up information. I got it from Grok, and that's 100%. But I noticed when I ask Grok a question, it damn sure uses Reddit a lot. It certainly uses Reddit, and I don't like that too much, just because of the simple fact that when we look at history is basically whoever is basically the first to write it. Not necessarily the victor, just the first one to write it.
Well, definitely not the dead people.
Because when they talk about the Tyrrhenia, it's not far from Malta, and it's not far from that location at all.
That's actually kind of, well, Tyrrhenia is in itself a crazy topic, because I mean, it could refer to a number of different places actually, because they're all a number of places got named Tyre or Tyrannus or roots of those words because of the god Tyre and their
The worshiping,
followers. And they're all nomadic pirates for the most part, so they kind of ended up in all different regions. So, and the weird thing is that the ancient Greeks used to call Tyrrhenians. Tyrrhenian was basically the word for anybody who wasn't Greek. At the
Exactly.
time.
Yeah, just like,
oh, you're just Tyrrhenian, fuck off, you know. Like, so, but that's kind of like their blanket term, right? It wasn't exactly a specific people.
And that's what gets me is that most of these places wasn't around when Solon was speaking about this. And Plato definitely in his book that he used the words from Solon himself.
See, I disagree with that take on it too, right? I see the Cretaeus as a work of just like a modern work of fiction, really, right? I mean, the places are never what gets exaggerated. It's always the players who get exaggerated or get spoken about. And the reason why I say that is because, okay, Plato, after the death of Socrates, traveled to ancient Egypt and studied under Egyptian priests himself.
You could show my picture that I have there. It's Plato. So
he studied himself. So he could have had firsthand knowledge instead of Solon. I think Solon, he describes it. He doesn't describe the dialogues as being, historical fact. He describes it as a dialogue. He's talking about other people talking about stuff. If he actually had firsthand knowledge, he wouldn't put himself into place of the main protagonist or the source of knowledge in his own book, because it would kind of seem odd, because the tale is about hubris. So you wouldn't put yourself as, hey, I went to Egypt and this is what I learned. You know what I mean? He'd use a character like Solon as a narrative character, just as an avenue of getting his story across. So I think he's just like, he had the firsthand knowledge of this himself. He just needed other characters beside himself to be in the dialogue.
So has anybody else talked about Atlantis before Plato at all? Or is it just Plato?
The only one that we have records of is just from Plato saying he got it from Solon. Matter of fact, I bring up, I'm glad you brought that up, because this is very important. This is a perfect part to talk about this right now.
It says Cretaeus got it from it, but he didn't say Plato. Plato doesn't say he got the information. He says Cretaeus, who is a character in there, got it from his forebear Solon. But again, the writer got the information, right? He's not necessarily telling you the truth.
Yeah, he says right here, he says, Cretaeus, listen, Socrates, to tell which, though strange, is certainly true, having been attested by Solon, who was the wisest of the 7 sages. He was a relative and a dear friend of my great-grandfather, Dropides. I've heard that said different ways, as he himself says in many passages of his poems. And
I just think that there's
the story of Cretaeus.
I just think there's so much room for fiction in those stories, right? And that is a perfect case of where the fiction lies. Because again, he wouldn't put himself in the place of the character. In a tale of hubris, why would he put himself in there as all, insert himself into as the source of the knowledge? Again, you know what I mean? If that's the case, and it very well could have been the case, because it's documented that he traveled to ancient Egypt and studied under ancient Egyptian priests for like 13 years after the death of Socrates, right? So I think it's a more plausible story that he got the information himself. But now, this is important, probably not.
Yeah, I want to bring this up because this is very important. You know, back then everything was passed traditionally by oral. You know,
and the way they passed it was through poems and hymns.
Well, not necessarily. They just it was okay. So the easiest way to explain it is from mouth to ear. The information was passed from one person's mouth to somebody else within their ear. And when people passed this information, they had to learn this word for word in many cases. The problem is that when the translations came, those words that they used, some of those words could have meant many different things, like Tyrrhenia. It could have meant a city, or it could have meant anybody who wasn't, certain groups of a Greek of a group of culture. It says right here, Cretaeus, I would tell an old world story which I heard from an aged man for Cretaeus. At the time of telling it was, as he said, nearly 90 years of age, and I was about 10. So this information was passed at the age of 10 years old.
He lived a long time.
Now that the days was the day of the apertura, which is called registration of youth, at which, according to custom, my parents gave prizes for recitations. And the poems of several poets were recited by us boys. And many of us sang the poems of Solon, which at the time had not gone out of fashion. Meaning that, like I said, it's basically like Freemasonry. When things are passed from mouth to ear, you don't have nothing written down. You don't memorize it by writing or reading a book or paper or anything like that. It's all mouth to ear type things. And this is what I see with this paragraph, or this small section by itself, was that they were given prizes to be able to repeat this orally back, word for word, almost. I mean, and I say almost because I can understand that there were some exceptions. Some people couldn't say words right, say it correctly or whatever the case may be. But we get this information this way. Now, what really strikes me out is when I talk to you about civilizations, most people don't consider a tribe a civilization, right? Like the Native American tribes, they don't consider them civilizations. African tribes, they don't consider them civilizations. That's just what they most people go off. But right here next, it says one of our tribes, either because he thought so or to please Cretaeus, said that in his judgment, Solon was not only the wisest of men, but also the noblest of poets. So he was passing, like you said, Fat Jesus, he was passing his information through poets. The old man, as I very well remember, brightened up at hearing this and said, smiling, yes, and me, Amy Nander, if Solon had only, like other poets, made poetry the business of life, and had completed a tale which he brought with him from Egypt.
From Egypt.
And not
key word, people.
Yeah, then that's what strikes me is that, do you think this information originally came from Egypt?
Oh yeah. Let's describe further on about the priest, right?
So the story is written in Egypt then. Like, it's got to be somewhere. Because if they passed on the stories by word of mouth, then it's got to be written on walls somewhere, and it will be discovered eventually. I'm assuming.
What do you think about that? Yeah, Andre, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that absolutely there was lots of information stored in the Library of Alexandria that was lost, that was probably exposed to many of the ancient Greeks who traveled to Egypt in that time. I mean, I think it was probably a rite of passage for many of these ancient Greek philosophers and historians to actually get in a boat and travel there. I know Pythagoras did obviously travel to ancient Egypt and around in his lifetime as well. There's an interesting story I heard about Pythagoras' adventures in Egypt. Was when he showed up. He showed up at the temple and he wanted to be a student there. And they said that in order for him to become a student, he had to fast for 40 days and go through a ritual of breathing before they would allow him entry into the school. And he said, basically in arrogance, he's like, I'm not coming for a feeling, I'm coming for knowledge, and I don't understand what fasting for 40 days is going to do it to anything, right? So he eventually relented and actually did go under the fast, and they actually, he recounted his tale and saying that the Pythagoras that showed up at the gate is not the Pythagoras that is entering these walls, and I'm a changed man. It was kind of like a ritual that actually even Socrates adopted as part of his prerequisites to become a student of his. You had to undergo a 40-day water fast to become part of the school, which I thought was kind of interesting as well.
Going 40 days without, it's not necessary, and I want to make it clear, it's not necessarily going 40 days without drinking water. It's
40 days just water.
Yeah. It's
no eating.
And it was more of a, how can I say, from what
what it was.
Say again?
a spiritual cleanse,
Yeah,
really.
there you go. Yeah, spiritual cleanse. Yeah. So, and water always had played that part. We all know that. But when Fat Jesus asks you the question, about well, when he spoke about Egypt and stuff like that, we literally have in these texts Egypt being mentioned in locations of places. So if we were to find something like that, it would be probably in Egypt somewhere, right? But go ahead. I want to hear what you got to say.
Well, certainly there once existed that information in the Library of Alexandria. There certainly could be the halls of whatchamacallit underneath. I can't remember the name of that term of the halls of something underneath the Great Pyramids. But I mean, I honestly,
halls of Amenti.
Yeah, Elementi, whatever. And honestly, is there information that could be gathered? I don't believe there is really. There could be some, but certainly not in a library of information that once existed for sure. I'm excited in the possibility that they're going back to Tlapalos out of Egypt, but that there could even be a possibility of a subterranean cave or chamber that still remains dry deep below the ocean sea right now. It's a possibility, It's in my fantasies. I'd like to get into an ROV and find an underwater cave that actually did open up into a live pool of air that had some secret scroll that still existed there. But that's kind of a pipe dream, I guess. If anything, the only thing you're going to find is hard stuff like pottery, statues, and earthworks.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is important to me. We actually, from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, we actually have writing from Plato that talks about Atlantis, meaning it's in his writing. He recorded it himself, right? Like
Yeah.
So
he
it's
recorded
actually
from them, yeah. So you can take the Solon route and say that it came through Solon and through to Plato, but I'd like to believe that he got it directly from Atlantean priests. They showed him some scrolls. They told him about all the kings and the lineage, because they traced all the pharaohs down the line, and they had 9,000 years accounted for from the time of Plato's time to the time of Atlantis. So that they had it accurately measured, and which is crazy that it actually lines up to precisely where I would expect it to line up with Tlapalos and then all the other data. I mean, it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess, at some point. But I mean, you can't have one without the other. It was just that was the time frame that it could have been, and that was the time frame that apparently the Atlantean priests put it at, and they were pretty accurate. I mean, nobody really argues about that figure of Atlantis,
right.
But nobody says, "Oh, well, it could have been, 8,300 years ago." No, everybody's pretty sure that the timeline is like 10,600 BC, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Around that area, or 9,000 years. 9,000 years before Plato, and Plato is 600 years before now. So it's 11,600 BC. No, sorry. 11,600 years ago.
That's Plato right there.
BC. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't have any paintings, by the way, because they all degraded. They use natural oil, not even oil. They use natural base paint, and all of it has disappeared by now.
Yeah. Must have been cool to see them paint it actually in real.
But they love painting.
I'm glad you brought that up because
they love painting. They wrote and painted everywhere.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because and this is not off topic, but a lot of people believe that, and I know you've heard it too. You probably know who what's this dude's name? Damn, I forgot his name. Oh man, Enigma Seeker or something like that, where he talks about Atlantis as being in Egypt. Do you know who that is? Enigma Seeker.
No.
So yeah,
probably northern Egypt.
So no, he's just a regular old dude that talks about the idea of Atlantis, and I'm shocked that you haven't heard about him, Andre, because he literally goes after everybody that talks about any place other than Egypt. But
Hopefully he's still alive. I
no,
haven't
he's
heard
still
from
here.
him.
No, he's there. He's still alive. It's interesting because, you know, Atlantis is a hot topic because everybody, like I said, wants to say, okay, this is the civilization. So let me ask you, how far back do you think Atlantis goes back before I start continue my this? Like, where's the time frame of Atlantis?
Here's the thing, right? I think it had to have existed for at least as long as the Egyptians have been around before it fell. You know, we're talking thousands of years prior to its fall.
Before or after, before or during Göbekli Tepe?
Oh my God, that's a long time
after,
ago.
Yeah, Göbekli Tepe was probably founded by the people who just fled the waters of the rising Mediterranean. You know what I mean?
We're talking about Noah's Ark now.
Yeah, well, no,
That's so far back. That's insane. That's the oldest city on Earth.
it would be. Yeah, it would be equivalent to Atlantis, which. Again, the period that I have projected in the mapping and the data means that the Mediterranean basin could have been originally drained.
That we know of.
Yeah, the line that I projected. I guess I can't say we know. Nobody knows of it yet. This is according to my projected models. Right? It's that according to the climate. And the age and the assumed elevation that I derived from the mapping, which was around 200 and actually 70 meters above the 250, which was about 190 meters below sea level, I guess, was where I believe the bridge was, and it's at that point that. I mean, there's a variability, of course, because I couldn't tell you if it was 10 meters or 20 meters, give or take. And that 10 or 20 meters of elevation could have meant it flooded 10,000 years earlier. But my estimates conservatively puts it at about 50,000 years of an isolated basin that, again, could have been where the original societies thrived, the original shoreline that people fished and people navigated and people built cities and homes along, you know, for 50,000 years. And that could have been like, you know, not necessarily hunter and gatherer, but, you know, fisher, agrarian lifestyles, just people living normal lives. And it would have taken tens of thousands of years of that kind of lifestyle before organized cities would have started appearing. So
I wanted to share something with you guys because this is an eye opener. The idea you have to get into your mind. Solon, you guys remember Solon he also passed on the information of Atlantis. He went to live and visit in Egypt, in the northern portion of Egypt. And as he was visiting Pharaoh Amasis II, he traveled to the royal capital in Egypt and everything like that. He was talking to him and he was asking about, you know, he was talking about the lands and all that stuff. And the Pharaoh himself says, the children reality, this is like the children reality. While visiting the temple of the Neith in Sais, Solon tried to impress the Egyptian priests by reciting the oldest Greek myths he knew. An elderly priest famously laughed and interrupted him, saying, "Oh, Solon, Solon, you Greeks are always children. You possess not a single belief that is old." The priest explained that because Egypt's geography protected it from cataclysms, they kept unbroken written records stretching back 9,000 years.
Yeah.
Well, that should blow your mind away. That information is from Solon. Solon wrote that.
Or Plato. But either way, it's
Plato, yeah.
Yeah. Either way, the information is true. I believe it 100%. Because according to my models, Egypt was completely safe from all that cataclysm. It wasn't even close to any of the cataclysm. They would have basically had about their shoreline would have receded probably 50 kilometers, maybe 100 kilometers. But I mean, that was slow receding. Like they would have been like, wake up the next day and it was like, okay, well, water's a little bit higher today. But, they could have easily outran the rising tides in Egypt. Certainly. They were used to being flooded anyway because the Nile was still
my hairs are rising up from my arms.
Well, see, that map that I showed you, the map that I showed you earlier is exactly a perfect case of that, because he describes in the Cretaceous in detail how the Greeks themselves have lost their history, how the water has washed away all the soil and all the remnants. Mm-hmm. Even the hill that the Acropolis stands on now, it's just like a rocky outcropping, right? But in the earlier days when it was originally built, that was on a long sloping hill that sloped down for miles around. Mm-hmm. And right now it's just, like I say, a rocky outcropping in the middle of the city. But there was so much topsoil that got washed away in all the floods. And if you look at all the floods that happened, I mean, you can understand that's what happened. Mm-hmm. The waters rose globally at the same time as waters were coming down from the Northland and flooding and stripping away all the land. It's ridiculous. And like I said, yeah, they themselves were constant refugees because the topography changed so much over the years that they don't even know their own history.
I wonder if there was a dam up north that I guess it's there's a lake up there, or a lake-like sea, and basically the mountain made a dam, and then all of a sudden it just broke apart, and then all that water came rushing into the Mediterranean Sea. I assume. I'm making this up.
That's for another book. That's from another discussion.
No, we got a part 2 then.
We found a part 2 book from that question. Nice.
But it's
important. I don't go too far into theories before people start asking questions that are actually very intelligent questions to be asking.
Thank you.
And it makes sense because, like I said, I brought up Göbekli Tepe because I know Graham Hancock and Andrew Collins talks about that. Even Billy Carson talks. I don't agree with everything. I don't even like Billy Carson just because of the way he believes he has all the information. But something he does that I did hear him say a while back was Atlantis has never really got destroyed. Well, it did get destroyed, but the culture still survived.
No, Atlantis didn't get destroyed. It did. I'll tell you that one thing right now. Like, people will be looking for the outline of that circle, and I tell you right now, we're never going to find a structure looking like the Rishat structure under the ocean, even if we dredged it all up. Because Atlantis was destroyed. It was destroyed, absolutely. The whole land that it sat on sank. It sank, and it was like strewn.
And if there was a volcanic eruption like so great, it would be buried as well.
It wasn't volcanic in nature, but again, it's something that I can just, we can talk about in another.
Are we trying to steal information from your book too?
Well, no, it's just very complicated. It becomes very complicated. And I don't want you.
Let me tell you right now, Andre. The people right now in the chat are very interested in your book too, because book 2 is going to open up our minds and our understanding of what really happened in that area, and then it's going to send out the next generation of college and university students to look for it, because once we're gone from this earth, it's going to be the next generation that is going to be discovering what we're talking about right now. What we're talking about is historic. This is historic right now, and we're passing on this information. Everything on the internet, every social media, every historian is going to pick up everything that people have said, even what you have said, and then they're just going to go and look for it themselves, because there's going to be more technology in the future. There's going to be subs that we're going to be able to privately run down there, and go check it out, and we're going to get samples. you
I just
know.
need
But
one of your listeners who happen to have the extra few $100K that they got to from a trust fund, or maybe they got an extra.
all right, Billy Carson.
Listen, I'm not taking money. You could be there the whole way and be. I want.
We need it. We need an investor. That's for sure. We definitely need an investor for
Mary
that whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, every great.
If you are interested in
needs
finding
to-
Atlantis, if you are wealthy and you are a billionaire and you want to find Atlantis just because you want to attach your name to it, or just because it's fun. It's fun. You want to do something with your money. Well, invest it in this man right here. He will help you get to Atlantis, and we're going to find the proof and the truth where we're showing you right now. So why do you need him? Well, you need him because he's the one who's been talking about it this whole time. Andre is the only person that has discovered it and found it.
You're in the digital world when
I appreciate kind words, guys.
Yeah.
When Teleplos is spoken online, it definitely brought up your name. I wanted to bring up this because this is very important. One of the descriptions of Atlantis is
the figurehead.
what some people say is the concentric circles. That's the big old idea. Now, Plato doesn't say in his book necessarily concentric circles. He gives ideas like enclosed a hill in which she dwelt all around, making alternate zones of the sea and land, larger, smaller, encircling one another.
But he does describe the width of each one of those strips as being a certain width of stadia in length. So he implies as concentric. That's
the modern term that we use is concentric circles.
Yeah, I have no reason to believe that the city wasn't built to those standards. But I mean, the land that's encompassed in the description that Plato describes only describes a couple of rings that really wouldn't have had very many people living on those rings. Like, functionally speaking, the center area was big enough functionally for like maybe a palace or something like that, a couple hundred people living in there. The next ring out was only a couple stadia wide that circled the city. I mean, you got to think, like, you got to have a road in there. You probably have buildings on each side of the road. Not a lot of real estate, to be honest with you. I've actually calculated the areas and built out Atlantis in 3D as well, according to Plato's descriptions. And it's not that impressive when you look at it compared to Teleplos. I hate to say it. It's rather small. And but it's described in such detail by Plato that's why it's still in the public eye, right?
Oh, yeah.
The difference with Teleplos is that the description that Homer gives of the city is one of Odysseus is parked outside the harbor. He sees all his ships go into a narrow harbor. They all get attacked in the harbor, and he takes off and he leaves. He cuts his mooring line and leaves. So all he saw was a narrow harbor into it. And if you look at Teleplos, I can pinpoint the place on the coast where Odysseus sat and looked into that harbor.
That's what I wanted to ask. Right? Yeah, I wanted to ask you from the map that you provided, the Edmond map, map. I'm sorry. Where would the concentric circles or the circles be for this location, from what you understand? Like, where would this indication would be? Because it says land, sea, land.
Probably closer to Egypt, right?
Atlantis is in a completely different spot that I haven't even begin to tell you where it is.
Yeah, now that's where I want us to get to. Yeah, and
that's where I want. I can't get to. I'm not going to bring you to Atlantis today.
Okay. No, that's perfect for part two.
It has to be part two because again, I want to have a little bit more stuff out online before I release my theory on Atlantis. I want to have my book out there first. Once I have my book out, then I'm going to be probably more open to talking about that theory. But the understanding of Atlantis is, again, it's not about when, it's not about where it is, because I can pinpoint it on a map to you, and you're not going to see it in AidWineNet. It's not going to show up in the bit.
Yeah, I remember you said your book is actually going to explain it. I do remember you saying that.
Well, see, the concentric circles wouldn't show up in this map anywhere for, well, okay, where I suggest it is, because see, there's different levels of detail in this map database.
Mhm.
Where we are right now on the Malta Escarpment, it has been surveyed extensively, but certainly where I believe Atlantis to be doesn't have the same depth of resolution. So I can't just look at the map and say, okay, here's are the concentric circles. Even if they did exist, which I don't believe they do, I believe they would have been completely decimated by the event that destroyed it.
I always felt like it could have been an indicator of how far Atlantis actually spread, to be honest. Because you can find these concentric circles, that's what they say in modern terms, in different locations in that area, from Cadiz area to the Rechak structure.
Yeah, lots of pictographs that look like Atlantis. I mean, even a spiral to me could have been Atlantis. You know, they say concentric circles, but you got to think about it in the perspective. Our perspective, we can see concentric circles flying above head, like as a bird would see it in our mind and on a pictograph. But in ancient times, where you didn't have that advantage of perspective, you're not seeing. You would imagine sailing up to Atlantis. You wouldn't see the circles, right? Even if you sailed into the harbor of Atlantis,
it's too massive.
It's too massive, and it's
but
and it's round, right? It's in front of you. It's not. You're not flying over it in a plane. So, the knowledge that Atlantis was even in that layout is an amazing point, because to be described that way, you would have had either knowledge of the city from the builders, or you would have had to have spent enough time there to navigate the city around and gotten your way around. Maybe someone that you actually had a map that back then could show you, oh, look, this is Atlantis. It's a big circle. You know what I mean? Could have happened like that, right? But certainly if you were a foreigner sailing up to Atlantis, you would not have even seen it, because as Plato described it, you would have sailed up to it, up to the shoreline, and all it would have been an inlet that was about a stadia wide of a canal that traveled inland 50 stadia to the actual city of Atlantis. So sailing by, you wouldn't even have noticed it. It was concealed and hidden, and it was a fortress. So the fact that people even knew that it was circular is, again, an amazing fact, but it's a fact. You know what I mean? It's a fact because people held on to that bit of information because it was important.
I think everybody in the chat and anybody listening to this podcast is interested in part 2. Before we close it out, do you have any?
We ain't gonna close it out. We not yet, because we still got, unless you ready. Unless you want
part 2.
No, I wanted to talk a little bit about it, the Anunnaki, because of the idea that I know it's a very short discussion. But a lot of people say Atlantis has a lot to do. That's why I was talking about Billy Carson. Billy Carson says, which the only thing that I can say that I believe the Atlantis culture is still here. I mean, maybe not the land itself, and not necessarily the whole entire culture, but maybe small parts of it. But we don't know what part of that culture is, because we don't know what they represent. It doesn't talk about their culture.
Some people claim to be hybridizations of.
No, but what I bring up is that, they say that because of the idea is that the Anunnaki was an advanced group of individuals, which I can tell you didn't come from no planet. They came from the depths of the sea. This is where I try to say, okay, you got to separate this alien shit or extraterrestrial shit from what is actually written in the text. We know that there was a flood that happened at Atlantis. We also know that there were many floods. So I'm pretty sure within those many floods, people left that area and said, we're not going to let this happen to us. It might have been a small group of people.
I think they came from a planet.
Well, see, there's no actual text that says that. There's actual text that says the depths of the sea. So when I look at
but the depths of the sea can be the depths of space.
No, because
it's all left in interpretation.
No, because when we look at the depictions, Enki is a fish god. We don't see fish in the sky. We see birds in the sky.
We do. We have
No, we don't.
Pisces up there.
I think every time you mention
The
aliens,
stars.
it's kind of like a slap in the face of our ancestors and all.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is because when you actually read the actual text itself, the actual text from the cuneiform, we look at the depictions, Enki is literally depicted as a fish god. Not only is he depicted as a fish god, but he also has streams coming out his shoulders with fish swimming in there. And that's an indication of him being the water. It literally says he came from the waters. He was the fish god.
Basically, he's a mermaid. He's Aquaman.
Well, that's another thing. The depictions do depict that. If you look at the actual depictions, that's why I said the first language was pictographic script. It wasn't writing something down. It was drawing the shit out, and people made their translations based off of what they seen as a picture. I give you a perfect example. I can go right now, type in there, and I can do the praying hands. But to some people, that would be clapping, right? Some people would say it would be praying. Some people would say that's clapping.
That's true.
It's up
there's
to
no
there's
no animation. Yeah,
there's no animation. So you have to, the two people who are looking at that, the person that recorded and the person that's looking at it, those people have to understand each other's writing. Like me, you can have a whole conversation with emojis, but we would have to understand what those emojis meant to us separately, what we understand of them. So when I look at Enki, the Anunnaki, it says the depths of the sea. So like I was saying, we know Atlantis had many floods. That's written in Plato's books. But I would say, as somebody who is a father, you know, if I seen that a flood was coming once and I didn't like that, I'm going to move my family away to safer ground. Now
that's your focus. Your focus is on your family.
Yeah, so some people could have moved their families from one place to the other and carried that culture. And and when you say the depths of the sea, doesn't mean necessarily they came from inside the water, or they were mermaids as a sense. It could just mean that for the fact that the depths of the sea could be in the middle of the ocean somewhere, right? And I gotta admit, Andre's depiction and honesty towards where he shows, you know, what we just looked at on Edmund Emondnet. Yeah, we can see that this location is underwater, and it looks like some kind of place that could be manipulated by man's hand, right? And that's something we have to look at. Now, when people take the idea like Billy Carson and say they came from this planet and blah, 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 to me, you have to have something that back that up first. You can't just say, just because you believe in alien and extraterrestrial doesn't mean everything is alien and extraterrestrials, right? We know that, right? And I hate when people go that route because of the simple fact that that's, like you said, Andre, that's disrespectful to our ancestors. That's very disrespectful. You know, people out there work. I don't think Billy Carson worked hard a day in his life. I can tell you right now, personally, he is a fraudster because he has been known to take from people. I mean, there's criminal records of him taking and stealing from people. I mean, he changed his name to avoid that, you know. And in this day and age, you can't fight that, right? You did something like that. You got a criminal record. You've been taking money from elderly women, $8,000. I mean, that's disrespectful.
I'm not out to grift anybody. I got a story that I just got to get out. I can't. I didn't expect it to ever.
I don't even think he's grifted. I just think he's taking advantage of people that they believe in something that he's going to go with it. And that's why this information that we have is so bad, because of the simple fact that when people like you come over here, do their due diligence, study the language, study the maps, create maps, go out of their way to do everything. And just like you told me earlier, you have a family and you have a job. So you have to use your time wisely, right? Billy Carson travels the world. There's no way he can read that many books traveling that world like this. I can tell you, I'm retired, 42 years old, being retired in my early 30s. I can tell you right now, as a family man, I don't have enough time to read as many books as I want to. I still got to clean dishes. I still got to fix my cars and stuff like that. When something happens, I got to work around the house. I got to cut the grass. Maybe because he has money to do that. But while I'm doing now that, he's getting on the plane, he's getting on social media, he's getting all this stuff, doing all this stuff. But people believe him because he's famous. And I think that is so ignorant of people because they go after who is famous. So we got to stop that because in reality, I have the same certificates that he has. I mean, literally, Billy Carson, he talks about how he has these certificates. He went to Harvard and this, that, and third. I can tell you right now, I've taken classes, the same exact classes he has. Why? Because
it seems like a very educated man. He has
he's
all
not,
those
and I'm
certificates.
telling you, he's not. There's nothing educated. And I'm gonna tell you the reason why. Let me explain to you the reason why. You can go on you can go on edx.org and you can take free classes
Let it
from
out,
Harvard.
man. Let it out.
No, you can take these free classes online, but the thing is nobody checks if it was you that took that class or not. So you can have other people take these classes for you and pass it, and you can say, well, I did it, right? I'm serious. You can. It's not that hard. That's why going to college makes a difference. You have to sit your ass in that seat, and when you take these classes and these tests, there's a camera in front of you, and somebody has to see you take these tests. On these certificates that he took, I know because I took those same exact classes, and they're only 6 to 8 weeks, and you can go in there, and I'll tell you how easy it is to pass it. You can literally go in there and they'll ask you questions. You can highlight those questions, and this was before ChatGPT and Grok, before they came out when I took these classes, but you can now, because I still have them on my edx.org account, you can highlight these questions, type it in Grok, ChatGPT, and get the answer, and boom, you got 100 easily. There's nobody's watching you take this test. So when I say that there, so I told you I didn't even get to ChatGPT wasn't around when I took those classes.
You come out, you go in to take a test, and you come out with a gown and cap.
But what you can do is you can write it down, and you can go Google search it and look for it and stuff like that. I mean, I did that. I mean, why wouldn't I?
I believe you. I believe you, man.
I considered going back and getting a degree in archaeology as well, but I mean, honestly,
that's a hard degree, man.
But this is my point: is that
it's a lot of years.
If you
I got to learn a bunch of information that I know right off the bat is wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that was my point. That's exactly my point. Is that I know offhand. I know offhand what is accurate and what is not, because if you tell me something, I want to be able to read it for myself. I want to see where you got this information from. Yeah. I don't want you to say, like I asked Andre earlier, I said, hey, what is your sources for this? He told us. He gave us his source. His peer-reviewed article has it on there. His article with Graham Hancock's on there. He's active on social media. And
I respect that.
And he's writing a book. Right. And I can tell you, as somebody who is a best-selling author, I'm a best-selling author. My book went #1 as soon as it went out. And I can tell you from my experience, it's not hard to do this on a perspective if you have money to dispose of. OK, people, and I'm not trying to harsh on Billy Carson. He just takes this Atlantis stuff and he makes it. Most of the people that talk about Atlantis, they say that Billy Carson is his source. Why isn't Andre your source? Why isn't Plato your source? Matter of fact, forget Andre, forget me, and forget you. We can go straight to Plato. Why aren't you quoting exactly what Plato said? Right? And the thing is because people go off of who is famous, who is known out there, who got the $1 million, who got this, that, and I've read Billy Carson's book where he literally talks about himself all throughout the book. There's no information there. He takes information from other people.
It's by design, man. It's by design.
And that's what I'm saying is to keep us
everybody
ignorant.
Will go to him for the trips, for all this stuff, because they trust him and nobody else. They don't know anybody else.
Yeah, because people like Andre will have a hard time saying, hey, look, this is Atlantis. Even with David Stig, I told him too that, okay, I understand your idea of Atlantis being this place. And he has told me plenty of times himself. He says he's not 100% sure this is the capital, but he does say that it is part of Atlantis. He has said, yeah, he says it's part of Atlantis. He does say that.
I talk to David all the time on Twitter, and he challenged me to a debate on it. But again, without giving up my information, I'm not going to debate him on it. I've been trying to tell him he's wasting his time without being an arrogant arsehole by saying it like that. Like I want to just.
I don't think he's wasting his time. I think honestly,
what will it take for you to sit down and talk to him on a podcast? Talk
to him. I need to have my theory out online myself. Like I need to have my paper on Atlantis out there.
You want to have it before so somebody can steal it, right?
Well, exactly it, right? Because any idiot can get online and just start spouting off where they.
That was my point. That's why
Billy Carson could be listening right now, and he can be out there tomorrow with my theory. And
that's why I brought that up.
Discovers Atlantis, and how am I going to prove that?
100% why I brought that up, because Billy Carson.
Right? I have that now. If you Google Talopolos, my name shows up.
Your name shows up. It literally does.
And when time comes, when Talopolos gets that credit, I will show her where Atlantis is, and then maybe I'll have credibility finding 2 lost cities.
No, the reason why I brought that up, because a lot of people say you always talking about Billy Carson because he steals information from others instead of sponsoring people. He steals, and he does have the money to, like, if Andre was to come out here in full-fledged, says this is Atlantis, this is my sources, this is it, without having a book published or an article that has all that information in there, somebody like Billy Carson who has money can fly there tomorrow within 24 hours, take all that man's information, and because he has thousands and hundreds of thousands of followers, he can say, I came up with this idea. This is mine. I've been doing this for years. I've been thinking this for years. Now, Andre is left out.
I think it's everybody
any
in
information.
The game. I think it's everybody.
But that's my point. If me personally, first of all, everybody wants to be, I found this location. Right? Everybody wants to, right?
Yeah.
And the idea that everybody wants to say this is because they want their name to be out there forever. Well, we're in the digital world.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty for that because I put my title up. It says, "We found Atlantis. This is the man that will tell you exactly where it is." And I did that because I wanted to get more followers to come in and watch our podcast. I'm guilty. I am sorry. But I apologize ahead of time. I am guilty for it.
Well, I'll make a promise. If you follow me on Twitter and follow my account, you will know where Atlantis is within 5 years, guaranteed. Can't imagine any longer than that.
I bring that up because, like I said, I bring that only not to harp on.
What's your Twitter, by the way?
I'm about to bring it up.
All right, Rebirth of the Word will bring it up. You can answer his question.
Once he said that, I was like, let me bring his thing up real quick. The reason why I say that and bring that up is because I don't want anybody to think that I'm trying to harp on somebody like him. The problem is he takes from other people. Maurice Durrell is literally the guy that talks about the Emerald Tablets. Literally was the individual who said he got the information from Thoth himself. Then Billy Carson read his book and said, now I know what Maurice Durrell was saying. No, you don't, because Durrell already said what he was saying. Then you don't reinterpret what he was saying. It's in English. You read his book and that's it. You don't have to go make up any scenarios or anything like that. He literally tells you this is what it is and that's it. But Billy Carson had his first book that he wrote about it, literally steals everything from Durrell. He quotes him throughout his own book. Then when he does his second book and says, well, I translated the last part, Durrell already had done that. So you didn't translate shit. You know what I'm saying? And this is where I have a really bad taste in my mouth when it comes to individuals that say they know things. We're in a digital world. He's been on social media plenty of times. He knows how to screen share. If he knows how to read this stuff, bring up the original text in its original language, then translate it in front of everybody. That's how you win. Because people who have actually already done this, I guarantee you, if they had this knowledge, had this technology when they was doing it 50, 60, 70 years ago, we would have had a great representation of even Zechariah Sitchin. Zechariah Sitchin always says the Sumerians this, the Sumerians that. But then I'd say, what about the Ubadians? What about the foundation of that area where the people that came before the Ubadians? You know what I'm saying? There's groups of people that came there before that. Forget all that. We can go to Göbekli Tepe and talk about Göbekli Tepe, right?
Here, slow down a bit. Are you going to give us that X account so that we all find out in 5 years?
I got
You're gonna leave us in the dirt, man.
No, I'll never do that.
We all want to click that follow button on X. Is it on X?
Yeah.
It's on X. I'm just bringing it up. But yeah, my point is that we don't get facts like we should get. People take this information and they sit there and tell us, this is the absolute. This is the absolute. This is the absolute. And I disagree with that. And I'm glad that
it's the same as his name right here, A.T. Chasen.
And I'm glad that Andre said that he doesn't say
the immortation.
Yeah, he doesn't say.
Do you play? Do you play World of Warcraft? Is that the name?
No. Oh, I did play World of Warcraft, but that isn't a World of Warcraft thing.
So this is your book right here, right?
Yeah.
So this is the cover of the book.
That is a beautiful cover. I love that cover.
I'm definitely getting me a copy. But I just want to say that I respect when and I hope you get this book out soon. And the reason why is because of the simple fact that this information is needed.
Let's go.
And I say that, and I've told David Stick to do this too. I said, write a book about Atlantis. Put everything you know in there about Atlantis. I think, I have to disagree. I would debate anybody, Andre. Honestly, I will. You probably already know that by now by following me on X. I would debate anybody. And I would have a nice, cordial debate, respectful and everything. And the reason why is because of the simple fact that
I know he will.
I say that because the idea that when we talk about Atlantis, you have to be able to be careful who you give your information to, especially if you haven't put it out in writing for it to be fully out there, because people would take your information. When I say I would debate anybody, it's the simple fact because I believe that you and Stig and even Michael Donnellan, and all three of you guys, I know Randall Carson would never do it because he has too much on the line to lose for it to be wrong. Yeah,
I think same with Graham Hancock. He was he had too much invested into he was backing the wrong horse pretty much. With
I hear him always talking about the same thing over and over again with slight details changing every so often. So he plays it safe now because he has his empire.
Yeah, he can't afford to be wrong. And I offered him Galapagos.
Now this is
I would mean Atlantis on a silver platter.
Check that out. That's
this,
the same.
This is what I wanted to bring up because I was looking through your profile earlier. This right here is pretty damn interesting. Based off of what we've seen on Edmund that website that you gave me. And you got the main gate, you got a bridge. You got bridges over here.
That's downtown New York. Yeah.
It's roughly the size of Manhattan Island from the tip right to the Bronx, really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you got a lighthouse right there, which makes sense because of
there is a peak in the bathymetric data that would make one believe that there is a lighthouse there. And in fact, if I ever dive, that's the first place I'm going to look for, because I believe that lighthouse would be the number one identifiable underwater structure that could be identified as man-made. It would still be sticking out of the ocean. Very little sediment would have collected on it. Yeah, it's my first point I'm looking for.
So you say this, you don't think this is Atlantis, or you do? I just want to make that clear.
It's a completely different city.
Okay, so
it's got a lot in common with Atlantis. The outside canal is roughly the same size as the canals in Atlantis as they were described, which is fascinating because it's
my heart just dropped right now. This is not Atlantis?
Come on. No, he says this isn't the Atlantis that.
It's Galapagos. It's a different city. It's a gateway.
Yeah, I feel robbed right now. I was really going, yeah, we found Atlantis, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, this is not it.
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you.
It happens, I'm used to it. But
this is the similarities that share with it. So this is what he's saying, that everybody's looking for like I was talking about, the concentric circles. And the island, and this is the only location that could be considered an island for missing civilization, at least. And that's why
it has similar design elements to Atlantis, which begs the question: did they have similar designers? Were they built by similar peoples? Right? Because a lot of it has structurally the same thing as Atlantis, but obviously it's not concentric circles, right?
No.
And there isn't inner layers. There isn't an extra layer that's described by Plato. This is what's described by Homer in the Odyssey, right? Completely different story, completely different ancient Greek poet.
So just for verification's sake, you say this is more in line with Homer's Atlantis.
It matches Homer's description.
And that's important because Plato even actually talks about Homer in his books. In Critias or Timaeus, one of the two. I can't remember it.
Well, I don't think he really mentions it at all. Really.
No, he does. He does.
He does. Okay.
Yeah, let me see. Let me see. I can't remember which one it is. Plato. Homer. My bad.
Where are these ideas that they say that the Atlanteans caused their own destruction? Where did that information come from?
I think they were known as being a very flamboyant people, and the way that Plato described it is kind of like they had it coming, kind of like Sodom and Gomorrah, in a way. They were arrogant people who just had it coming, and I think that's kind of a mainstay of humanity. Really, is like seeing somebody getting justice and getting their comeuppance when you think they deserve it. And I think Atlantis was just that tale. I don't think anything more than they didn't do anything, physically that caused their demise. It's not like they caused their own flooding or their own earthquake or their own.
What shocks me about Atlantis is the technology, because if Egypt, and what I read to you guys and what the priests were talking about, it made me feel that Egypt has that same attitude as like the people of Atlantis, like they're like, oh, I'm better than you, you're just children kind of attitude. And it's because they have so much knowledge, right? Years and thousands of years of knowledge is beyond understanding. It's incredible. It's not the Egypt that you know today, of course. But no. I mean, I'm thinking, did they have a force field over the island? Nobody could attack it, or it's just the way it was set up. Nobody was going to get close to it, or because of the location. I mean, I'm like, my brain is on fire just thinking, did they have the ark?
No. You really, you got to look at
not the boat. I meant like the ark that if you touch it, you disintegrate ark. Like a power source.
No. I honestly, the city is laid out very structurally defensible. I mean, you got 50-meter cliffs. All you need is rocks and a simple catapult, and you can destroy any boat of the day. It was built to be a fortress, practically a fortress, where you couldn't attack from any other angle. Like, it's just logistically impossible to do that. So the thought of some energy field, like,
I'm just thinking about Egypt, because Egypt was protected for so long until Moses on down and just parts the Red Sea just magically and just takes off with the ark, and then all of a sudden Egypt is being attacked by all sides, being destroyed.
No, he didn't take off with the ark. He didn't leave Egypt with the ark of the covenant. The covenant was what he put the tablets that he got from God into, and that's really just a fancy box,
Yeah. I do want to bring this up because we're at the 2-hour mark, so we'll be closing out. And I definitely do want a part 2, and I definitely hope to get that after your book, because I will read your book. I do want to say this: Plato never necessarily says advanced civilization like a lot of people say. That's why they believe Atlantis is, some sophisticated alien extraterrestrial type of people or whatever, or connection with them of some sort. Plato never necessarily says advanced civilization. What he actually says in his book is, now in this island of Atlantis, there was a great and wonderful empire. Now that could mean anything, and that can be subjective depending on what you consider great and wonderful, a wonderful empire.
But what is he comparing it with? I mean, what empire has he ever been around in comparison to
the Holy Roman Empire?
You know,
I mean,
how
that's
big?
a good-
How
that's a-
big is an empire, and how
that's a good
would
question.
he relate Atlantis to another empire? That empire, obviously, Atlantis is much greater than any empire he's ever seen before, like
But my
ever heard
point is,
about.
Well, the
this is
Romans
why
were around for a pretty long time there too, and I think they would be the benchmark you'd rate any ancient civilization by. And I would say Atlantis,
True.
Galapagos, all comparable to a degree. I mean,
Yeah.
they had to persist for thousands of years. They come up with any kind of mechanical and technological thing. They probably didn't come up with electrical systems, but certainly the antikytherial mechanism, which very well could have either rooted in Atlantis or Galapagos. 10,000 years ago, it could have been built easily. You can imagine clockmakers with that kind of precision could have done that 100 years ago. So who's to say isolated civilization 10,000 years ago couldn't have done that easily within the realm of possibility? But and that's where I'll go.
and that's why I wanted to bring that up, because of the simple fact that a lot of people say, well, the Atlanteans were advanced civilization. Well, can you tell me where they say they was advanced at? Nobody can ever point where it says. And then I say, well, what was it that they were so advanced on? And I try to put it out like this, and I want people to understand this. When we went from hunter-gatherers to where we're at today, we started off with hunting. Hunting's probably started off with running and grabbing whatever animal we could. Then we eventually started creating tools like spears and rocks and stuff like that to do flint arrows and all this other stuff. I want to say that, depending on your idea, a spear is very primitive. A bow and arrow is more advanced than a spear. Okay. A crossbow is more advanced than a bow and arrow. A gun is more advanced than all the other stuff that you put in between.
You're forgetting the sling.
And the sling.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that advanced civilization or advanced technology just means that technology that we had before. We're a much more advanced civilization in 2026 than we were in 1996. Yeah. And when we was in 1996, that was more advanced civilization than it was in 1976, and so on and so forth. Our technology has gotten better, and since our technology gotten better, our civilization has got more advanced. We are now traveling much easier around the world than we were before, and it's because of our civilization. So I want people to understand that just because you hear somebody say, "Oh, well, and the Atlanteans, they were advanced civilization," Plato never necessarily uses that modern term at all. That's all subjective. Is really just a powerful and highly sophisticated civilization, and that could mean anything. It could have been a group of people that was at Galapagos who were using spears, and the Atlanteans eventually had bow and arrows, right? Or some type of I don't know, the wheel, for instance. A lot of people believe that the wheel started because it was used for traveling. Nah, it started because of pottery. It helped them create pottery better. You know what I'm saying? So that's where we get the wheel. So
I mean, you could use that stuff as a defense mechanism too. You could use a whole defense battery of stuff with the wheel, and I mean, whatever they were huge empires, so they can make almost anything.
But we don't know that. We just know that they were sophisticated.
We can assume it because look at us. We're an empire. Yeah, we're massive. And look at all the inventions we have.
Now, this is where the kicker comes in. Where's the artifacts for Atlantis and the depictions and the idea?
Oh, it's down there. We got to get him the $400,000. He needs the $400,000 to get down there and get that technology.
I priced Galapagos would be easier survey because we know where it is, but the area that I put the city of Atlantis covers a couple hundred square miles of ocean, and it's in a general area that it sits at, but it would also need subsurface survey to be done. But I've contacted a company, Kraken Robotics, and the second I get the funding, they're gonna give me their.
I hope so. I really hope.
I just hope that.
I really hope so.
at the bare minimum, Graham Hancock would give you a chance. He gave.
I wish you would, man.
I mean, maybe
That's right
afterwards when he discovers
I mean, he
it.
gave Jimmy Corsetti a chance, and Jimmy Corsetti just takes what other people say.
But he gave me a chance too. He gave me a chance, and I guess I squandered it because he picked Jimmy Corsetti above me because I hate Jimmy Corsetti.
Hey, don't feel bad about it. You know what? You are on the top of our book. You know, I mean, you know, nobody else is here in the podcast. But
I really think you should. I honestly, and hopefully you'll think about it after this. I think you, Michael Donnellan, and David Stick should have a conversation. Not so much Randall Carson because he says Azores, but Azores is still around and habitable as of today because he said he went there. So
Azores is easily dismissible if you just look at what Strabo said in around 600. Or actually, when did he say that? Doesn't matter when he said it. Strabo of Asia, he's pretty much stated in his book Geographica that even
I'm glad you said that. Geography. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. People don't know that book.
It's amazing.
Geographia
he gets all excited and giddy.
Bro, I read that book. That and Almagest, man, those are two freaking hard books to. Well, Almagest is hard to read. Just because it's all mathematics. It's literally all mathematics. That's a hard book to read.
If Strabo had Google Earth, I'd be here in a podcast with him. Honestly.
Yeah, Geographia. That's a very, 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 very interesting book.
Very good book. Yeah, and what was I going to say about that?
I never read it.
Well, there's several points I can make about that, but now I forgot what point I was going to make. So I guess I'll forget.
I have to count on you two guys. But you know what? It is 10 minutes past that, and we need to have a part 2 for sure.
Yeah.
You're going to be coming back, right?
It doesn't necessarily have to be about Atlantis. I mean, certainly.
I mean, we have your word on that, right? You're going to be coming back to the podcast because we love you and our guests love you. So we really appreciate you.
Yes, I hope to get a few more followers out of this and actually get a movement so that more people can hear about Talopolos and. Because, like I said, it is the gateway. It's not the gate. It's the gateway to understanding where Atlantis is. And to me, when I discovered Atlantis, in my heart, it jumped out of my chest. And if I were just to say Atlantis is here and point on a map, you wouldn't get the same feeling that I got when I found it. So I want, when I finally reveal it, to be able to put it into a narrative that it's easy to understand, and people will say, "Oh my God, that is exactly where Atlantis is." And I want you to feel that the same way I felt. But that's me as a storyteller. I'm not that great yet. I'm working on it. I'm trying to put together the right text and the right animation for that.
Right on.
It's coming. It's coming.
I want to watch that video that he popped up right there. That's a really good video. I love the beginning already.
Yeah, everybody, please go check out Andre's X account. He does need funding. I'm gonna definitely put me some $5 into your funding when you get it.
Buy me a coffee, yeah. Sure.
I'm definitely gonna buy your book. You have a book coming out soon. You're working all the kinks out, getting everything right and updated and putting your time into it, which is greatly appreciated because you're not going off just to follow the money. You're going in there to follow
it takes a village. It takes a village, you know. If each person in the village gives $5, and soon enough you'll have enough money for the funding. So
I would appreciate that a lot. I mean, anything anybody can help. And certainly I know that there's the right person is out there that will see my information and would want to back this, because honestly, there's got to be some of the same passion to find Atlantis as I do in bringing this information. In fact, I'd rather be on the boat doing the survey, smelling the salt sea air, than actually trying to.
You should probably hit up universities. You should probably hit up the university, the international university, not the American ones, but the international university with that idea. They can probably fund it.
Man, it's hard to get funding, bro, because too many people.
It's hard to contact people, man.
Bro, trust me, it's hard to get sponsors, and I really believe that, like, if I had the funds, I would definitely sponsor you. I mean, there's no doubt in my. I'll probably be sponsoring a lot of people, to be honest with you, just because I really want to know the truth, and I'm that type of person. I spent time in the military. Fat Jesus spent time in the military, and I just want to say, when it comes up to that, you basically gotta go through so many different things to weed out the incorrect information with everything. So, like, with this, if I believe what you say because of your passion. You have been talking about this, like I said, for about 1.5 years. You create your own work, you do your stuff, and you do it well. I know people like Billy Carson. He says in his books he has hundreds of people that does this work for him. I know Giorgio Tsoukalos is hands-on with his stuff, but he's a friend of Billy Carson, so they're going to believe what each other say, and that's part of the problem. We have to learn how to separate our friendships from the knowledge. I don't care if you're my best friend. If you can't provide me with actual information, then I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to do that. You're not a friend to me if you're lying to me or want me to believe what you want to say. That's not a friend. A friend is somebody who's going to get down to, nitty gritty with me and actually try to look for it. And I consider you a great individual, and I believe that people should sponsor you. And I hope you get what you did deserve, because you are doing your just by this 4-minute video, you can show that you're passionate enough to do this yourself. I don't see Billy Carson and anybody else doing this stuff. They usually just take other people's stuff and they repost it, and because they repost it, they make most of their monetary gains.
And they never say who it is from either.
That's what I'm saying.
I've seen it. It's like, oh my gosh, dude, where's the references?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They claim, they claim it as their own.
Yeah, and that's sad, because I really believe that there are a lot of people. There's enough information out there, and I always say this: there's not one book that one person can read. You can't read one book and then get all the information. And I also say, just because you read thousands of books doesn't mean that you got all the information. Those thousands of books can be referenced one book, 1 or 2 books. So they basically just repeating the same thing over each other. Yeah. Matter of fact, I could tell you right now, if you read the Holy Bible, if you read one scripture, you're going to read that same scripture in a different way somewhere else later. So I just want to leave it like that. But I really do appreciate you being here, Andre. I hope we have another conversation. This is a journey for all of us. And I think you're at least at minimum, I can take your understanding and your passion serious, because you're doing this yourself, and you sat down with me to talk to this, and you would talk to anybody about this. Hell, I mean, you've talked to so many different people about this, not just with me, but you're hands-on talking to a lot of people, and I really appreciate it. So everybody, please go here, check him out, give him I know a couple of people hit me up a while back when I was promoting your work a while back. There, a lot of the people that I know already said that they started following you because of this, and hopefully this opens up a new door for you to get what you need. And I'm definitely going to support you, and always will. I'll support David Stig and all those other people, just because I understand where they're coming from. But I believe that I think you should really have these conversations with these guys, and I think it would probably help you more than you think it would, only because it will seem, and I'm not saying this in the wrong way, it will keep you from saying, hey, like how Billy Carson and all these other people, Giorgio Tsoukalos and stuff, they don't want to hear somebody's opposite opinion, right? Even just getting into a room.
That's right, Constitution, Chris.
If somebody comes in there and says something disrespectful and you need to leave, at least bare minimum, you can say, I tried.
Are you going to play that video at the end that I sent you? Knowledge is power?
No, we'll play it next time.
What?
Yeah, we'll play it.
Don't have it? Oh, come on. Oh, it was so good. I worked so hard making it.
Let's see. Hold on. I don't even know where is it at. Oh, I gotta add it into the thing. That's why I was telling you I'm gonna add it into our thing. But I'm gonna
next stream, guys. Next podcast.
Yeah. I'm gonna end the stream, and like I said, Andre, please keep doing what you're doing, bro. You on it, man. You definitely are on it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to chat about these things. I don't get the opportunity as much as you think I do.
Right on. But hey, right here on this show, you definitely have that opportunity. Like I say all the time, knowledge is power.
Got a little hype now, can I let it die down? I remember days in the trench. Time to go hard in, time to go all in, time to get my all to this shit. Panamera maxed out, first class flights out, Atlantic to Pacific, yeah, it's lit.